Hello drone racers, today we're going to take a look at the awesome F200 High End version. We've already reviewed the standard version on the channel. You can see that here. We've done several modifications to it. We put in a receiver, we added a buzzer, we did some good stuff on that, and I really like this model. It's not perfect, but I like it a lot, and it's really cheap for what you get. It's a really good deal. I asked Banggood if we could review the high end version to go along with it and do a comparison, and they were gracious enough to send this along. So let's take a look at see what's in the box and how it compares. In the box we have the same awesome straps. These straps actually have been pretty good, and a couple of connectors, less than we had before, and it looks to me like these just go into the PWM connector, so these are probably only PPM connectors. We'll look and see if there's smaller UARTs in it, but we may end up having to get some different connectors in order to connect these the way we want to. Looks like it has the same Racer Star 5042 props, which I was really happy with. I have beat the heck out of those props, and the worst I've had to do was straighten them up a little bit. They have been really awesome. I have a baggie of components, a whole bunch of stuff here. It looks like in order to attach all of the motors, extra screws for that, and an extra these are T-motors, so we even have extra clips for the motors to take them all the way apart, and nuts to attach the props. The antenna, it looks like the same antenna that we got with the standard version, which has been really good. Again, I beat the heck out of that, and I have bent it back from these crazy pretzel shapes. I've been really happy with the antenna, and the video has been good enough, and the durability is outstanding. So there it is, the awesome frame. A lot of people have complained about the original versions of this, and I honestly think they have updated the frame for these new models, because people said the frame flexed a lot, and it does flex a little bit, but not a lot. Has a really nice bevel on the edge, which actually makes it stronger. I've crashed the other one a ton, and it's been really good. One of the big differences here is this is a 4-in-1 ESC, so it should be quite a bit lighter. We'll test that once we have props and antenna and everything on it to be sure. It comes with a Runcam, which is one of the upgrades you could do to the old one, but it would make it more expensive at that point. Here we just come with the Runcam that you want, which will give us OSD, and there it does have a buzzer on the inside, if you can see that, so it has really everything that you need. It's a pretty hefty price tag by comparison, but these are T-motor F42 motors, which I've read really good things about it, F40 2600, so they're really high kV. I'm expecting amazing performance out of this thing. So one of the things I didn't like about the other one was it had a VTX strapped to the bottom plate, and it got really hot, and I was concerned about space. Now the VTX has been integrated into this board, for better or worse, I don't know. You can see the board is facing the direct right version, and there's the channel. You might be able to see right in there to be able to see what channel you're on. Nice and visible and really easy to see. There are some 4-pin UART connections here from the looks of it, so we're probably going to have to connect one of those, and then the CPM connector here, PWM, which you're not going to use with this. So let's take off the top plate. Some people said these screws were a weird size. I have a 2mm screwdriver here, and my 2mm works just fine. Whether that means it's actually not a good screwdriver, I don't know, but it works just fine for getting in there. One of the things I really like about this frame is the reinforcement for the antenna here. This is on a separate piece, but it's really strong and really well connected. One thing to note, the back screws are longer than the front screws, so make sure when you're putting it back together you put the long screws in the back where this plate is. So we have the boot pad, which will be nice and easy to get to. I plan on racing the heck out of this thing, so I will definitely be upgrading this to whatever the latest firmware needed is. The buzzer is just soldered right to the board, so hopefully that doesn't provide any strength problems. There's a button here, which I'm assuming is to control the channel, and speaking of assuming, there's no manual with this thing. Same as the last one, you've got to figure it out. So yeah, this does make it tough for beginners. If you can't, there's no manual that it comes with in order to know what's going on. One other thing I do want to point out, this was actually not the first time I took it out of the box. When I got it, I just took it out just to spin the motors, and one of them sounded like it had gravel in it. I was afraid it was a bad bearing. I was going to have to tear it all down or replace the motor right off the bat. I took it off the plate. What I found was this little bitty screw was stuck to the bottom of the motor, so that's just a quality control problem that I don't know what this screw is for, but it was stuck to the bottom of that motor and could have caused a total catastrophe had I not found that and taken it off. So with these, make sure you check everything, check the motors, make sure they feel right before you fly it. Looking at the ESC wires, they are really tight and they're soldered okay, not great. I'm thinking about maybe putting a zip tie here and here just in case you would catch that. The odds of catching that are pretty slim, but if you pulled on this and ripped that, that might be really difficult to try and fix. So it's nice the Runcam comes with an audio port, but they didn't hook it up here. And also, it didn't come with a cable for programming the Runcam, so that seems like an oversight. Luckily, I have one. Oh, and I just found where that screw came from. That screw came out of the camera holder. That's a camera mount screw. It looks just like this one here. So that should be right here. It had come out, fell out in the box, and then got trapped underneath the motor. So make sure those screws are in place. There we go. We'll just put that back in while we're at it. Now that the camera seemed loose, so that's why. It was because that screw had come out. Taking the screws here out, planning on taking this plate out, just so this top controller, the flight controller and VTX and everything, just so I could see exactly what it was and how it worked. But I found a problem. See the buzzer that we were talking about earlier? It gets in the way of the stand here. So I'm gonna have to take this off completely. Let's see, make sure. Yeah, I'm gonna have to take this top part off completely in order to get to that. So that's a little unfortunate in the design, but it's not that big of a deal. It's just 4 screws. There's a top plate has come off. I've just left the Runcam connected because I don't really need to take it completely apart. So this cable is powering the flight controller, and then it's also providing the 4 signals for each of the ESCs. So the flight controller is controlling the ESCs from there. Yeah, we have UART1 and UART2, PWM. So even wiring up there, this is a very small, clean board, and it actually is branded Awesome. That's interesting. I figured it was some third-party board, so not an easy board to work with if you need to do anything to it. If you want to wire up telemetry to it, it's going to be tough. You'd have to actually connect it to one of the UART ports with a cable connected in a patch, or you'd have to strip these down completely, which I don't really want to do. It is unfortunate that we don't get audio going into the VTX. It's not critical, but I do really like having audio. I'll tell you, it makes making videos a whole lot easier when I can sync up the audio without having to figure out where my frames are. Just sync up all the audio and we're good to go. I got the bottom screwed back on. In this case, because I don't see a good way to get telemetry going on here, I'm going to plan on using a FreeSky XM Plus receiver. I don't need telemetry on it, so this is ideal. It's smaller, it's lighter, it's better in every way. I have the header pins soldered on here for now, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to cheat. This is a cable that came with the Awesome 200 standard, and I don't know why it didn't come with the high-end version, but this is what you need. This is a JST-SH 4-pin connector. I'll leave a link for this down below, and if I forget, yell at me and I will add it. They're pretty easy to find. This one conveniently came with servo connectors on the other end, so that works out really well for connecting right to this receiver. I'm actually not going to wire this up yet because first I want to take a look at it in Betaflight to make sure I have UARTs available. And I've said it before, I'm going to say it again, even before you plug in that, make sure you have an antenna connected all the time. If you ever have power, really never disconnect your antenna. That's probably just the best advice, because if you power this on, you could fry this whole board, and that's the problem with this all-in-one. This VTX is built in, and it transmits over this, and if you fry that, you've got to replace that entire board, and I'm not even sure if you can do it, so that might be one of the downsides of this, but at the moment, it looks really sweet. So now, let's take a look at OBS. We have lights, we have a quick connection, that all looks good. Make sure the model is tilted and flying the right way. This is the default. We have no power, which is fine. Let's take a look at the version. I believe that's one of the latest versions. I don't think that's very far out of date. Now, 3.2 is in beta at the moment, so actually I see 3.17 is available. So I am going to connect up here and do a dump and back this whole thing up. Just take this and save it to a file. Just because I'm not going to do a full chip erase because it's a very minor update. 3.17, load, flash, should fail. Yep, it's going to fail. Okay, I've just got an extra spare little piece of wire here. I'm going to put on those 2 pads and push it down. Try and get good contact with both of them. There we go. Now we'll plug in the USB. There we go. So we got no blue light that time, so I'm pretty sure that means we got a good boot sequence. Flashing. Clicking local erase and flashing. Good. That was pretty easy. Okay, successful. We'll unplug. Plug back in. Connect. And I've still got this file here. I'm just going to select everything. go to CLI and just paste it right back in. There we go. Now ports. So UART1, which is one of the ports here, has the USB port on it, so I can't use that, so I have to use the other ports to make sure I get that connected. So what I'm going to do is set UART2 for serial RX, save and reboot there. Go into configuration. I've not actually connected anything yet. I am pretty sure I'll be able to support DShot 600 this time, but we won't set that yet. First we'll get the receivers going. We'll set this for serial and S-bus. There we go. We'll set this to 4000, 4000. We should be able to handle that without a problem. Telemetry, I just don't think it will work, but we'll find out. Save and reboot. PID tuning, we're just going to leave that for now, except I am going to go ahead and set these to 0.8 across the board. I've flown enough different quads that I know I don't like that 0.7 default. It's just not quite enough. The modes does have some defaults on it. Interesting. They actually set the failsafe on the switch. I would not do that. Motors. Alright, so I think we're ready to hook up the receiver at this point. I have this cable, which I will link down below to where you get a 4-pin JST-SH. I'm going to connect that to the front here. And that will give me my negative, positive, a blank space, and then I will have the receive port here. This cable comes with these connectors on it. I'm not going to use these permanently, but for today, for testing, I'm going to go ahead and use these, and all I have to do is slide them right on my XM ports. So on the XM ports, it's pretty easy. I have ground, positive, and S-bus. For a permanent connection, what you want to do is get one of these, and it will come with the wires attached. You'll either want to solder them onto the connector here or crimp on a connector, or if you have a receiver that has its own cables coming out, just cut this wire and solder the connections together to make it the right length. In this case, I'm just sliding these on because I'm using this for testing for now. I don't want it to be overly complicated. Okay, I've done this a bunch of times, but I will do it again just for the heck of it. I'm going to go into, and I set up a new model. I just created a new model here, and I went into page. All I've done so far is named it F200 HE. This is the high end. I've set the failsafe mode to no pulses, and that gets me, I'm on a D16 receiver here with the XM. I will set up 4 switches, and I set up this one, SA, as my arming switch. I set my flight modes with SE here, and then I set the buzzer to this switch, the SC switch. So I've got those set up now, and on the next page, next page, all I have to do is go in and out and in and out and in and out, and there we go, and I'm done. So there, the radio is pretty much done now, and I'm ready to bind it. There we go. Now I have the full lights on my receiver here that you can see. Going to bind. There we go. My green light turned off there. Exit that. Reconnect. There we go. Now I have a solid green light. Now we'll plug the USB back in. There we go. So I'm going to go ahead and see this failsafe red. That must not be set for some reason, probably because it's on a switch. And what I want to go in first is check is the receiver. Go ahead and change this to JR Spectrum, which is what I need. I sorted out the issue by going back and looking at the video and noticed that the cable pinout that I've got here on this original cord, the white cord, which is supposed to be the S-bus, was connected on the UART to the transmit port, which is not going to work. So we have to have the transmit on the receiver here go to the receive on the UART port. So I've moved this pin over one spot, and now when I connect it, it will work properly. I'm connected it into UART 2 because I don't want to use UART 1, which is what this other port is listed, because that is also shared by the USB. There we go. Now in the receivers tab, I have throttle, I have switches, I have aux 1, 2, and 3, just the way I want them.
believe my modes are already going to be set. No, they're actually not. I forgot about that. Okay, so now we're going to go into arm, and I'm going to arm on aux 1, and I want it on the middle and the bottom of my three-way switch, which is there. Angle, I actually want on switch aux 2 along with air mode, and that needs to be aux 2. So now on aux 2, in the back position, I'm on angle. In the middle, I'm on horizon in air mode, and pulled back, I'm in just air mode. So that's the way I want that to be. So that's good now. I do not want my failsafe on a switch. I'll just delete that. And then beeper, I want enabled for the full range. Not that it matters that much. On aux 3. So there's aux 3. So those are all set now. Now I'm just noticing with my battery connected, I do have proper voltage detected, so that's good to know. So I'm going to go back into configuration, and now we're going to test the motors. Make sure I've got everything right here. Battery current, oh, it even does have a current sensor that works. Okay, so those must be wired together. I just didn't notice the connection, so that is really nice. It does seem to have a good hookup between them. Now let's just go for the gusto and go straight to D-Shot 600. You'll notice we do not have props connected here right now. Everything's connected. Now we have motors. We're gonna both test to make sure they spin. That looks really good. So that's way better than what we had with the standard version, which D-Shot just simply didn't work for me. Now it does, so I like that a lot. I'm also gonna check here while I'm at it, while I'm in here, to make sure each of the motors is spinning in the right direction. And if you click this button here, you can actually use the arrows on your keyboard, because I only want just a little bit of throttle, which is one of the nice things about D-Shot, is they will turn properly and slow enough that you can see them if you give them just a couple notches up. And I can see all 4 of them are spinning the right direction. So good. Good. Last thing I will check, even though this is almost never wrong, I'll switch into expert mode here and go check the failsafe just to make sure failsafe stage 2 is set and set to drop, which is what we want it to be. We've set it in the receiver so it will stop sending pulses. So on no pulses, what it will do is just drop this out of the sky. But I think we're done. I'm going to go ahead and dump the config. And I'll save this to a local file just to make sure I've got everything. Now, one thing I'm not sure of is how the Runcam is set up. We're supposed to have OSD. I'm assuming it's just through the Runcam that's responsible for the OSD. This flight controller is not actually doing it. So I'm going to grab my goggles and we'll test that. So there I've got the lens cap still on, and we can see that we are using the Runcam for the OSD. We don't get a lot of info, just voltage and flight time and the name. And there's no way to even change the name because they didn't ship a cable with. So I will link down below if you want to buy a cable to be able to reprogram this. I'll go ahead and grab mine, and we can do that now on ours. But for the most part, it's big, it's clear, it's easy to see, and you see the voltage. I'm not going to go a lot further into it this time, but I do want to see if I can get real telemetry available on this to my FrSky, which I would swap out the receiver at that point. But for today, at least we have OSD. One other thing I can see already that I like about this over the standard version is I replaced the lens on the standard version. Made a big difference. I put a GoPro lens on it, but this default lens will get a lot better camera angle. There's a lot more angle to that than I can possibly get with the big lens because it just gets in the way here. It's not a whole lot, but a couple degrees makes a really big difference. You can get a really good camera angle with this, which I really like. So now I have the receiver plugged in. I have the extra wire just kind of coiled up here. I think it'll stay there okay. As I mentioned earlier, this is too much wire. Cut yours shorter and cut it to length and solder it. But right now I've got this in here for testing because I may end up changing it later. Have everything. I have just double stick tape holding the receiver down. I've reversed one of the antennas to make sure it fits better. Because what I'm going to do for the moment is fit them through these 2 holes in the upper plate. Sticks them up the top. I may end up testing this later with some additional cameras. If that's the case, probably what I'll do is use these little vents here on the side and attach some antenna connectors to go up through the top here. So the antennas can feed into a tube through there and then feed up the top out of the way so I can fit a camera like a Foxcam 3 on here. But that's for a later video. So now all I've got left to do is put those through there, screw this top back on, put the props on it, and we're gonna test flying it finally. Just in case this is somebody's first quad, all the motors spin in. So these motors spin this direction, And these motors spin this direction. There's some debate whether that should be reversed or not, but I think the consensus is at this point people would rather have grass coming in the front and the back rather than on the exposed sides. So this is the way we're keeping things. A lot of companies have both clockwise and counterclockwise motors. In this case, these are all standard threads. So all of these are just lock nuts that will screw on the standard direction. None of these are reversed. Personally, I prefer reversed nuts. That way they don't even have to be lock nuts. And if they hit, then they just screw themselves down tighter. Other people disagree, but that's the way I like it. In this case though, these are all standard, so make sure you screw them all in the standard righty-tighty, lefty-loosey directions. Okay, props are on, battery strap is in. One very last thing I want to do before I go fly is see how much lighter it is than the standard version. So I've got the standard version here, and I think I've got everything all set up the same. So we are at 320 grams for the standard version, which has separate ESCs. I've added the buzzer, larger stack. It should be heavier. These motors definitely look heavier on this. So we have 320 versus 304, so it's 16 grams lighter. So it's not a huge amount lighter. It's not a like night and day difference between the standard version and the high end. So for lighter weight is not a primary factor for switching to this. Now that can make a difference, but it's not like it's 50 grams lighter. But let's see for the difference. Is it faster and better? Because I like the standard version a lot, so I'm not sure if this is going to be that much better, because I like the standard version a lot. All right, so this is our first flight test of the F200 FE. Make sure we get in the air. That was easy. That looks pretty good. Stable mode. The grass is going to be a little bit wet right now, so I'm going to try and stay off of it. That looks good. That looks good. Horizon mode. Of course, it's windy out now. We'll do pretty solid flips right out of the box. That's not too shabby. This rate seems to be a little lower than I'm expecting it to be. There we go, that's better. All right, and we'll test air mode. Yep, that looks good. All right, that was easy. Do a line of sight. Ooh, except that sun's in the way. And I broke it. Oh, I got it right in the sun. I couldn't see what was going on. Did I break anything? I guess that was good as time as any for a first crash test. That prop looks a little whopper jawed. Straighten that dude out. Let's do one more auto level test. Make sure she's all right. Seems to be okay. No worse for wear. All right, I can already tell. Look at the wide dynamic range. Looking right at the sun, and I can still see just fine. That is pretty sweet. All right, so we're gonna try this again. We're gonna do a couple punch-out tests, try and not do it in line of sight of the sun, because it just doesn't seem to have the punch I would expect it to. Straighten out, everything seemed to be okay. All I did was straighten out the props. If I punch it, yeah, that seems to be all right. Have some prop wash. This will definitely benefit from Betaflight 3.2. We're on 317 right now. Let's try again. I mean, that seems certainly good enough. Okay, while I was waiting for it to dry, I also figured out how to change the VTX. I will go through that after I'm done with the testing here. Again, I'm really impressed. I'm looking right at the sun and everything looks fine. I was on 25 milliwatt. I have increased it now. I think I'm on 400 milliwatt now, so that's pretty nice. It's not super easy to change, but it's not bad. Not controlled through audio though. All right, so before we do anything else, let's redo that range test. I do have a little more vibration now, probably induced by the props that I have pretty much destroyed. Bird. Yeah, there we go. Now with 400 milliwatts, I have no problem going out to my standard 200 meters. Whoa. Yeah, I'm probably gonna have to stick new props on it though. Because that was nearly full throttle. There's full throttle forward. That's not right. That's turning it, there we go. So, now the question is, boy, it just needs a lot more throttle than I'm used to. I wouldn't expect, I don't know what the deal is. There's my antenna. Yep. I think I'm gonna have to put new props on this before I do any real additional testing, because, I mean, there's full throttle and it goes pretty fast, but it doesn't punch out like the standard did. The standard, I could just throw it around corners and it would be fine. So if I made this turn here, although that did that pretty smoothly. That's actually not bad. Maybe I just have to get used to the throttle throw on this. That's actually pretty good right there. It's very different level of throttle control than I'm used to on my on the standard. It's just a very different power curve. It's all at the top end. Once you get there, it's good, but I'm used to a much more linear power curve. I'm not used to throwing my thumb up that far up the throttle. I think once I get used to it, it'd be okay. How are we doing voltage-wise? Let's try not to kill packs. So my goal, okay, we're gonna come in and land this one and smooth this out. I think the camera angle is pretty good for me right now. Let's see, there's level. What is going on? My auto level is way off. Holy cow. Jeez, something's jacked up. Oh gosh. All right, let's see what's wrong with that thing. Okay, let's try this again. I put some 5048 props on it, just to see if we can get a little more low-end torque, which is kind of what I'm after. I think it's a matter of preference on how these things fly, and the way it was propped and the way these motors are just not the way I want things. Oh, that feels better already. I had to give it full throttle to get it to go where I wanted it to. Oh, that's so much better. Yeah. So while I love the 5042s that the standard had, I don't think it was enough prop for this one. Now this one with the 5048s, that's already a world of difference. That feels so much better. Yeah, now I like it. So there's the first thing I didn't like. Oh, that feels perfect now. Boy, I wonder if it can handle more prop, because that is just where I want it. And you know what, if I had even a little more, I might have to grab my Gym Fan 5142s just to see, sorry, 5152s, to see what they do for it. Now, will I kill batteries in that case? I don't know, but I might be willing to find out. I'm gonna have to grab them because we're going to a racing. Gentlemen, let's go racing. Oh, I'm so glad I put these props on. That makes this a whole different quad. Now all of a sudden, I was ready to say, no, don't buy this. And now I like it. I like it a lot. That's just a world of difference. One little change makes. And it's a cheap change, thankfully. Yeah, all right. Enough screwing around. Time to pack and go racing.
My racing day with the F200 High End didn't go quite as I had hoped. It started out well. I was getting a few battery packs in, and by the end of the second pack, I was starting to get my groove on. It wasn't great. I'm not a great pilot, but it was starting to do well. I'd broken a couple props, had some big crashes. Everything seemed good, but then this happened. After the big crash, one of my motors, you can see right here, just everything spins up smoothly except that one. It just does not work well. And the ESC resets, it just doesn't go. So now we're on a mission to fix this and see if I've actually broken this thing before I've really gotten to enjoy it. Okay, I've gotten it apart. This is one of the things that made me nervous. It is a 4-in-1 ESC. A lot of people don't like them because if one fails, you can't fix it. But honestly, I think that's a little overblown. ESCs don't go bad that often anymore.
And in this case, I think I got really lucky. I mentioned in the review that the wiring seemed a little sketchy. It didn't look outstanding. And I think what happened is one of the solder pads, look at that, just popped right off. So I've only got 2 wires connected to this motor to the ESC. So hopefully, and it looks like the pad's still there. I think the solder just came off. So hopefully I can heat this up, reflow it, and be good to go again. Let's find out. So what I'm gonna do is just add a little solder to this pad. It looks awfully shiny. Try and get that on the pad itself. There we go. It's probably a little more than I needed. It sucks so well. I'm actually surprised this was a problem. Actually, for my soldering kit, I have this brush. I'm going to try and use it to take off some of the solder off of this thing. There we go. Since I added solder to the pad, I really didn't want that much solder on the wire anymore. Okay, the hard part with soldering like this is I had to get my head way in there, but you can see now I have got it on there, back on that pad and reattached. So before we reconnect, put it all back together, let's see if the motor works. So here's a good case. I'm going to use my smoke stopper just in case I totally screwed this up. Flight controller's probably going to be ticked off because it's not level. Hey! I have 4 motors, yay! So that was a pretty simple fix. That's about as easy as it can possibly get. All you have to do is solder the pad back on, or solder the motor wire back onto the pad, and we're good to go. I wish it was soldered a little better so we didn't have to do that in the first place, but as far as things go, it's a free fix, and I will take a free fix every day of the week. Is it better than the F200 standard? The answer is yes, absolutely. But why? The big thing, it's the camera. This camera is the big deal. The Runcam is so much better than the camera that comes with it. It sorts out all the issues there. So are you better off with this or with the standard and just putting a Runcam in it for an extra $35 and adding a buzzer, we'll say for $5? So that makes that about $180 versus this is $230. Yeah, there was just like a 5-minute pause there while I thought about it. I would probably buy the standard and the camera, given the two. This one is really nice. I think these motors, I need more testing with it to see how much of a difference there is, but now that I changed the props on here to something that fits me better, I can't tell a huge difference. Now, I am not a high-end racer, which was proven today at the race that I went to. I'm not even a good racer, but that's why this is Drone Racer 101, because those who can't do teach, right? And how it goes. So now recently I've tested the F200 standard, I've tested the F200 High End edition, and I have a GT200 on its way also. So that will be here this week. Hopefully this week we can actually do a 3-way shootout. So we'll do a review of that, and then I'll say, you know what, for this models, for these ready to flies, which one should you get? I like the standard a lot, and I wish I could have flown it today during the race. Unfortunately, I'm missing a C-clip for the motor because I had to clean out the motor after somebody put a whole bunch of mud in it. It wasn't me. About the only reason I say I would pick the standard is because I'm a total cheapskate, and I like things as cheap as possible. This, though, does give you the all-in-one package and will have better high-end potential. In the long run, if your goal is to be able to keep flying one drone over and over and over, yeah, I'm going to go back on it. I'm going to say you probably are better off with this one because this will peak higher. When you are just starting out, the standard and the high end are about the same. Most of these drones are going to be about the same for you. The standard is going to get to about here, and I think it will get there just as easy as the high end, but the high end will top out for you on performance once you get good, if that is your goal. So if your goal is to be a racer, yeah, go ahead and get the high end. It's ready to go. If you are on a budget and want something that's really good with just a couple little tweaks, get the standard. I think they're both good models. These are my go-to models for racing right now. These are the ones that I'm gonna grab. Everybody asks, okay, should I buy an F200 or should I buy a Wizard X220S? And after flying them both today, there's no doubt you should buy the F200. The X220S is like a tank. It's so heavy going around the corners that this thing just feels so much nicer to me. I don't know if I didn't mention I did have to change the antenna because as much as I love the antenna, I ripped the other one in half. It ripped off right here, just ripped off completely. But this all held, which is good because this was good and solid. So I do like that. I got to battle hard and test this. As much as people have complained and said, oh, I can't buy those F200 frames because they're garbage. You know what? This has been really good for me. I have smacked the heck out of this, and I really like this frame a lot. Hopefully you found this useful. If you did, give us a like and comment down below with which one would you get now after I've done the mods, the standard or the high-end version? Which one? Or do you think the GT200 is just going to destroy both of these and it's going to be a non-issue? I don't know. I like the way this feels a lot now with the new props. I'm saying I like it. And until next time, remember, I don't think you can go wrong with either one of these right now.